Hello everyone, this is Shibaji, and today I'm going to discuss about the generative AI for non-data science folks. And before starting that, let me give my introduction. I'm Service Delivery Manager at Blue Yonder and very much enthusiastic about the data engineering and data science, and as well as the new trend about generative AI. So today's agenda, we will cover about the basic fundamental of data engineering, the data related insights, and what is the data evolution that we have seen in couple of years. And at the same time, we will also discuss about the importance of generative AI and the timeline when the generative AI got very, very famous. And at the same time, the next journey, what we are looking at. So I want to keep it very simple so that the non-data science folks can basically take something out of it and they can utilize generative AI on their day-to-day operation. The beauty of generative AI is it is not that you have to be super technical, but at the same time, you should know the fundamental of generative AI and the use cases of generative AI. Let's go to the agenda first. The first agenda today about the data literacy. So as you know that past several years, we have been talking about the industry 3.0, but now we are talking about industry 4.0. So industry 4.0 is nothing but the digitalization of technology, machine learning, data manipulation, and at the same time, making sure the automation is in place in the industry. Why we are doing that? Because there are a lot of labor shortage in the industry, and we want to make many of the things automated so we can increase our productivity and at the same time efficiency. So if you see the graph here from the Statista, and we can see an exponential growth of data since 2020. And if you see from 2020, 30, 2035 standpoint, it is exponentially big. And here we are talking about data on the zettabyte format. And zettabyte format, if the data is growing like this, definitely it is a time that we will have different types of businesses, applications, and technology around the data. And why those things are happening at this moment of 2020 and onwards. As I was telling that first reason is Industry 4.0. Industry 4.0 revolutionized the concept of digitalization of the technology of the manufacturing and the supply chain. And at the same time, when the digitalization is happening, the digitalization is supported by the cloud providers. So there are a lot of cloud providers that has come up. The few are very renowned one, few are new, but they are growing in the market exponentially. So when you have cloud technology, the cloud generally gives you the flexibility to scale. And when you are processing a data on zettabyte, and which is huge in nature, so you need computing power to basically run those calculations. And at the same time, you also need those applications based on the cloud so that it can interpret the data and then get insights out of it. So now when we are talking about the cloud technology, as you know, the cloud providers like Azure, AWS, and Google, these are the three cloud providers which are very famous. But at the same time, when the cloud providers has to support the data, which is huge in nature, which will be used for artificial intelligence, which is today's topic, for that, you need data processing in a very, very high speed. And for that, we need special kind of computing. And that computing can be only supported by the required hardware. And that is why if you see currently, the semiconductor industry is also growing along with the cloud technology and the digital transformation. So when we are talking about generative AI, we have to also understand that artificial intelligence has been always on the front seat, at least last 10 years. But it was never successful because we did not have the proper computing power. We did not have the proper hardware or semiconductor technology. And we did not have the main part, that is the stakeholder support. And in this case, it is C-suite. That means your CEO, CFO, and CTO, they are actually promoting artificial intelligence, which is acceptable and at the same time, which is secure. And that has happened during last few months, especially. So if you see the timeline of the recent generative AI concept and the trend, right? So first, we need to understand that in November 2020, OpenAI launched ChatGPT 3.5, and it has really changed the game because earlier all this artificial intelligence model were definitely they were predicting and they were also giving the output, but in this way the generative AI chat gpt 3.0 3.5, when it came, it generally came with a context. That means you can put a context over it. You can basically talk with the human language, and then it will produce lots of new insights and new learning for the human. And then if you see, it was so popular that it gained 100 million users within few months, and that is January 2023. And then we have seen many big organizations are trying to get the best out of generative AI. Microsoft, OpenAI, Google Bird, and then lots of open source LLMs or large language models are launched. And currently, if you see, we are really observing an increased way of enthusiasm from the C-suite. And that's why we are seeing the CEOs, CTOs, and over all organizations are trying to do research how they can utilize generative AI in their enterprise level solutions and services. The benefit of it is, as we were telling, that it is really a game changer because it will increase your productivity, increase your efficiency, and it will also improve your style, right? And then when we are talking about, especially on the chat GPT kind of generative AI, and we also understand that generative AI is something that really changing the way how humans are basically receiving a summarization. So for example, when you are reading a book, instead of reading the 500 book, you are actually getting a summarization of the book at whatever level you want. And then it is also having a human-like chat facility by which you can give a question, you can get an answer, and if you are not liking that answer, you can rephrase your question and get the optimal answer. And that's how we are seeing that the chat gpt has become very famous, and we are seeing lots of organization and individuals are using chat gpt as their first platform by which they can utilize their skills to get information out of it. And then it will also improve their productivity, efficiency, and style. Now there are a lot of tasks that can be efficient if we are using a model of generative AI, and we have seen a couple of them in our day-to-day applications. Now, if you are new to the generative AI and then you want to really understand what this model all about and what we are really talking about, so I want to go very simple language. So when ChatGPT was launched, it was based on a data set that you can see on my screen. So data set was huge, but it is a data set that is publicly available. So that means we are getting a data, we are transforming a data, and then we are basically creating a pre-trained model, right? And then on that pre-trained model, we are generating new text when we are giving a new input. So first, we have to understand that ChatGPT is based on a past data. It is not real time, at least ChatGPT 3.5. So it has data from the past. It has a data which is publicly available. It can be healthcare. It can be your supply chain. It can be your banking, all the organization related data and all the web crawl data, which is possible. ChatGPT has integrated that. And then it has created this model that is nothing but your generative AI model. Now, when we step back and see, okay, what is actually the generative AI? Then we have to start first with the artificial intelligence, right? So artificial intelligence is nothing but human-like tool by which you can actually get the answer or you can generate some output out of it. Artificial intelligence, in many of the cases, it's a black box because it is going through a lot of iteration of processing inside. So let's go inside artificial intelligence. So artificial intelligence as an overall practice. And under that, we have machine learning. So machine learning, again, we would call it like understanding of data insights by the machine. So when you have computing power and you have data, many of the time it can understand the data out of it, which is available, and then it can actually understand which human in general may not be understanding. And it generally processes lots of data, and it uses prediction. But it is not always prediction. It can be sometimes supervised learning, unsupervised learning, reinforcement, and a lot of new concepts are there. But in the machine learning, you have one concept called deep learning. So why it is deep learning? Because many of the time the learning will happen with lots of huge amount of data. That's why we will definitely need a large data set. And if you see my screen, you can see the large data sets, the billions of tokens that was used, and then which are the publicly available data set that was used for ChatGPT. So when you integrate all this data into your domain, your overall possible places, and then on top of that, you are basically using your natural language processing or NLP. So NLP is basically used for language level artificial intelligence. So when I'm converting the text data and then I'm actually getting an output in the text, or we are actually evaluating the text data and then getting the output as an image or video or a task, right? So natural language processing in this case is how we can process the language which human can take, and then how we can get the possible answer from the model. And that's why natural language model is very famous, because when you are using the natural language processing, you are the user. As a user, definitely you need not to be so much technical. And now in the natural language processing, we have one example like sentiment analysis, but at the same time, we also have the famous example that we are basically hovering today, that is your large language model. So why it is called large language? Because amount of data that it has processed. When the amount of data that any of the model is trained on, it's huge, and it is in zettabyte, gigabyte, and all this thing, then we call it as large language model. And is large language model we can understand what is happening? No, mostly, because the large language model is based on the neural network, and it is actually based on the input parameter, and then we are basically using the output parameter. We definitely can tune our input parameter to get a different or modified or simplified output, but at the same time we may not be able to process everything which is inside. And then what is generative AI? Generative AI is the full form of GPT, is generative pre-trained transformer. So generative AI is nothing but the generative pre-trained transformer, which was built by OpenAI organization, and currently by other organization also, how they are basically using different types of model. So GPT is one of the model where they have taken all the data, and on top of the data they have created the model. Now the question is, this is all very technical. So how we'll understand the basic concept of a artificial intelligence model or the data flow? So first we have to understand that any data science or artificial intelligence related models, when we are talking about, first we need data. And that's why I started with the notion that because our data growth happened exponentially over the year, and we have collected lots of data from business, from application, from day-to-day life, and from our IoT applications and whatnot, right? And so now the basic foundation of the data we have. Now the question is the data quality good? Is the data having right information? So now we have a second process called transform. When you see that the data is not in good form, there are lots of processes are there where you can transform the data, which will be used for your future use. And then that's why many of you have observed that there were concept of data warehousing, there were concept of ETL and whatnot, right? And here we are talking about a huge amount of data which should be collected, and then they should be trained to basically create that generative AI model. And then in the generative AI, once the model is done, it is not only creating the base model, but also to generate the new text by asking questions. So how you are asking question, the asking question here in the generative AI world, we call it as prompt engineering. So prompt engineering is nothing but asking a right question or probably giving a question and a right answer or a way or whatnot. So we will discuss about that, but we have to also understand that it is a data pipeline. So that means you have data. By that data, you are transforming and then creating a model. Once the model is ready, that model can be copied, and then you can basically send your test data, or in this case, for example, it's kind of a prompt when you are sending, and then you are getting the output in a possible statistically probable way how we are doing. And if you do not like it, you can go back and you iterate, and then you can actually get the right answer by asking right questions. And that's how prompt engineering works. And then it is generating the new text. So in this case, in general, the machine learning, when we are talking about machine learning, it always predicts something. So that means we know how it is going to predict. But and sometimes it is predicting numbers, sometimes it is predicting some numeric value, some booleans value. But here, what it is predicting is the text. So we are having a text model, a natural language model, which can understand your questions. It can basically divide that questions into different small tokens, and then on top of that, you can actually get the answer out of it. So it is basically creating or generating a new text. And there are a lot of other models which can not only generate new text, but it can generate different image. So those model names are different because they are specific to those use cases. Even from text, you can create videos, you can create tasks, right? So there are so different types of model, but those models we have to really explore and see how they happen. So now, basically, when we are coming to OpenAI chat option, right? Chat.openai.com, and we register ourselves, and then we can actually go over and understand that what things we can learn. And then we can really, really get the answer which will efficiently help us to get our job done, right? So at this moment, I would say that prompt engineering is a kind of a technique. It has art and science, both of it, by which you can ask a human language with a human language how you are asking to somebody, you are asking that. So first, we need to understand that when you are using OpenAI chat option, you have to always understand that you always have to give the questions to the model, and the model will give you the format. Now we will divide that prompt engineering and what are the best practices that we should follow. Now, if you see in the screen, in my screen, you can see that I'm one HR manager, and I want to have some candidates which is 8 to 10 years experience, and then I'm asking about that I want that job description to be created, and those candidates should be on IIM graduates, and then I should behave empathetic and polite in my job description. So yeah, so all these things, if you see the marked word, you are giving a context to the generative AI. You are asking what to do in the generative AI, and then you are not only giving a context and asking, but you are also giving a restriction that what kind of limitation is there. In this case, it is 30 watts, right? So we can always increase that, and you will see new text will be generated. And it is amazing because many of the time we have a task to do. For example, there can be a lot of use cases that we will be discussing. So in this case, we have to first take that ask questions, giving the context, giving the limitation, giving the example, and giving the control to say that what kind of tone it should use, right? And that's how it will give an output. If you don't like it, in this case, if you see that if I do not like it, I can definitely go back and say that whatever the improvisation is needed, and it will basically do that improvisation. And beauty of chat gpt here is it is remembering the context. So that means when you are chatting and then it is chatting back, it is not forgetting about it. It is basically storing the content and it is storing the context. And once you are giving a simple addition or removal or some other instruction for the improvement of your answer, it is using the same context earlier chat and then it is producing the new content, and which is definitely, you have to see here that it in the previously it did not mention about talent acquisition as a skill, but when I have actually added that the JD should have HS specific achievements, then for talent acquisition is one of the HR specific achievement, which is noted for any HR who has been in the industry, right? And that's how it has added that text as well in the JD. And in this case, because we have a 30 words limitation, it may not be adding more. So if we see that we have to add more, definitely there is a room for that. And now, once you are getting the output, we have to always remember that any output that you are getting from AI, it is purely your responsibility to either receive it or modify it or giving a human touch, right? And it is a efficiency and productivity driver, but at the same time the ethics, compliance, and the human touch is very, very much needed for any AI generated output. So you should always know the boundary of your AI tools and technology that you are using for your organization, and then how you are using it into your day-to-day life. If you are using it only for a template, only for some kind of emailer or all these use cases we will talk about, so definitely it can be okay, but definitely we have to refer to the guideline that company is providing because it is very, very early stage. Now, let's talk about the use cases that we are seeing nowadays, and we have to also remember that there are a lot of discussions are happening in all organization to find out that what is good for the organization and then what is there in the market, right? So when a new technology is generally coming, the new technology will be innovated by few of the player, right? And that is always true that few of the player will rule the market for monopoly for some certain period of time, and then few small runners will come and they will catch the wave. And that is what it is happening at this moment. If you see, the first OpenAI got launched, then Microsoft has a good engagement with OpenAI, and then Google launched Bard, and then IBM started their artificial intelligence path, and then whatnot. So everybody is trying to get something out of it because this is an incubation market, and lot of new openings are coming, and lot of technologies are coming to support that. So now, as we were talking about that, when a new technology is coming, first is that few people will do the early adoption. So when anybody is doing an early adoption, so they have to understand that should they build it or should they buy it. So build versus buy is always based on the cost and the profit or ROI that you are seeing from the tool. Now, it is also the secondary, it is also dependent on the partnership. So many organizations have existing partnership with some organization which providing the AI services and tools, but many organization wants to have new partnership. And that's why that opportunity for the partners or the service provider is still open, where they can create new market for themselves because they are providing the AI related services and technology. Now, when you have the ecosystem of partners and service providers and the organization who wants to put their budget into the AI, now the question is who is funding? And then what kind of sponsorship is coming from different aspects of it, right? So that's why fund is very important, that as we were discussing, that if your C-suite or the CEO or CTO or CFOs are aligned with your data strategy and the AI strategy, then definitely the fund and sponsorship will come into picture. And then that process will start where the company will do the awareness programs, adoption programs, and then plugging in all this technology into their product roadmap, services roadmap, and day-to-day way of working. At the end of the day, when any technology is being developed or adopted, we have to also remember that it is always the return on investment that matters for the product and services. And at the same time, the employee satisfaction, right? So when AI as a generative AI is coming into picture, we are seeing lots of benefit that we are getting it. So it doesn't mean that it will kill somebody's job, but it will also assure that we will be more proactive, and we will be focusing more on the data pipeline, the data engineering, and all the aspects of data and AI ML part of it, right? So what does it mean? That it does mean that it will create a new avenue of use cases in the business which could not be possible till now. There were some possibility, but there were some efficiency gap which can fulfill. So for a first example is automated testing. So when we have lots of test cases which somebody has already created, and generative AI can not even run those test cases or create the response of the test cases, but it can also generate the similar types of test cases as well as the test data. So it can fragment the test data, it can create a new test data, and the testing as a practice definitely will get that benefit of efficiency. Now, because ChatGPT and generative AI model is basically human-like text processing tool like chatbots and whatnot, then it will be heavily used for customer support, because customer support is also kind of an interaction what we do. And then we will also use for different types of development project. For example, if you have to convert some code, if you have to create a Python code, if you have to create a PowerShell, or if you have to create some kind of website from the scratch, then generative AI can actually give you all the answers, because it has enormous amount of data coding and all this thing. And that's why if you see all new test cases are coming, where different players like GitHub and different other players are creating their AI offerings, because this is the time. And we also have to understand that when this generative AI will come into picture, we will do a lot of tasks that will be automated through generative AI, and then simulations will come on the text instruction. So we have seen a lot of examples in Google Bird where you can actually generate different kinds of things. For example, you can create a PPT, you can create some MOM from the meeting, you can basically create one image from the text. So all these things are getting generated. Now the question here is, so what should we do? Should we get along with this wave, or should we be lagging behind? So my advice to all of you is, let's not wait for the right moment. This is the right moment, and we should capture that right moment. Either you are in the HR division, you are in the support, you are in the development, or you are basically a functional, right? So there are plenty of way how you can get any output from the chat GPT and basically use it. And many organizations are also using internal large language model, because they want to develop their internal large language model with their own structure and own limitation or boundary of security. So you will see lot of use cases that is coming, not only your organization, but all over the world, where people are trying, and it is a new domain, and it is a booming domain. And that's why you will see lots of people will come around in the community, and they will share their knowledge and also get the knowledge from the industry. With all of that, all the best for your journey towards generative AI, and all the best for your any action that you are going to do on generative AI. Read articles, read different magazines and different channels to get along with all the generative AI related knowledge. And you can definitely chat or ping me on the LinkedIn if you want to understand anything more about generative AI. But going forward, I will definitely do more and more sessions on the generative AI, a little deeper level and then advanced level. Hope you like this. And if you have any feedback, please post on the comment. Thank you so much. Have a great day ahead.